Hello, everybody. Welcome to Shadow at Night. This is Thursday, May the 8th, 2025. And on the show tonight, our good friend Nadine Ness from Unified Grassroots in Saskatchewan. She's been making the rounds on social media the last week or so because the government of Saskatchewan is afraid of her and her organization. And we're going to talk about, we've been talking a lot about Alberta independence for the past week or so, ever since the election ended, for that matter. People seem to be really steamed up in Alberta. And everybody I've spoken to says, yeah, man, it's everywhere. You can't go to a coffee shop. You sit down, somebody in the booth behind you is talking about, we got to get out of here. That's enough of this crap already. Well, I'm wondering if the sentiment is the same in Saskatchewan. The last poll we saw showed that Saskatchewan actually favored sovereignty more than Alberta did. But those numbers were kind of low, 25% for Alberta and about 30% for Saskatchewan. But again, who believes the polls that emanate from Eastern Canada? Because you know that everybody in the East and all of the opposition in the West, all of the lefties in the West, are going to be coming after anybody who believes that Alberta and or Saskatchewan should be sovereign countries unto themselves. So we're going to talk all about this tonight with Nadine. And the last time she was on the show, I think, was like 6 months ago. So we've got a lot of catching up to do. And I know you guys love her. That's why we bring her on every so often. And she's a great person, too. So Nadine Ness coming up in just a second. Shadow at Night live stream, as always, brought to you by Canada@nanosilver.com. Congratulations, by the way, to Kevin and Anna Sigurdsson, proud grandparents for the very first time today.
Is amazing. It has several natural health benefits, and it's been used for hundreds of years for health and healing. That's the main reason they made silverware from silver. But seriously, this nano silver from Silverceuticals is the best and safest silver you can find. There are hundreds of studies and reports on it. I've read some of the studies myself, and it's mind-blowing. One of the things that sets Silverceuticals apart is that it washes out of your body in 24 hours. No silver buildup and no turning blue. And it won't even harm the good bacteria your body needs. It's so effective, they can use very small concentrations of silver, like 10 and 32 parts per million, and still outperform other silvers that have up to 3,000 parts per million. It's safer and more effective at the same time. It is an incredibly small particle that is small enough to work through your body, but big enough not to fall out of suspension. They infuse it into almost all of their products. It works in facial serums, toothpaste, gels, and even gummies that work to help your immune system.
And you won't turn blue. Canada@nanosilver.com. Get a hold of Kevin and Anna through the contact tab on the website, or you can call them 204-808-9292. But today, you know, they're celebrating the birth of their first grandchild. It's a grandson, by the way. So you might want to wait until tomorrow. Canada@nanosilver.com. Again, that is Canada@nanosilver.com. Hello, Daniel. Hello, Barb. Hello, Sheila, Donna, John, Kevin and Carol from Ontario. Roseanne's watching tonight. You must be in Saskatchewan or Manitoba, Roseanne, because you're talking about the wind. The wind, the wind was a big deal today. Hello, Julie from an insanely windy Hillside Beach. Christina is not quite in Hamilton where she usually is. She's Hamilton bound tonight. Welcome to the show, everybody. And on Rumble, Nana Sue, Stump Slayer, Mouth of the South, Jimmy James is there, Patricia, Notable, Turi 62, Lone Arnie, Jimmy Balls 23, Dokar, Mama's Little Monsters 76. Whatever platform you happen to be watching on tonight, you guys, don't forget, it helps a lot to grow the show when you like and share. Get it out there to as many people as you possibly can. Nadine Ness of Unified Grassroots talking about independence in Saskatchewan. Coming right up in 30 seconds. Hi.
Hi. Okay, sorry.
I forgot to put myself on the screen. You were there all by yourself for a couple of seconds. It was
And the funny thing is, I wasn't even paying attention. I was trying to share the show on Twitter.
oh well, you're sharing it on. It only shares on 2 of your platforms, so you've got it on Facebook and YouTube. That's cool. The bigger the audience, the better. And again, guys, don't forget to like and share. How you doing, Nadine? It's been too long.
Good, good. Yeah, I was gonna share it on just quote tweet it. I'm just gonna do that quick so you can get more views. Come join me.
Would you like me
Live.
to sing while you're doing that? Because I know it takes
Yes.
concentration. Guys, I've had Careless Whisper by Wham in my head all day. I have no idea where it came from, and it's driving me crazy. And worse still, Nadine heard me singing it. She said, "Hey, you're a
You
good
actually
singer."
sound good.
And you know what? That's only going to encourage me to keep singing this song. I need something else in there. You've been making the rounds on social media lately, hey?
Yeah, more than social media. It's all over mainstream media. We
No,
we
no,
did
no. We don't call it mainstream. You know
what
this.
do we call it?
The left-wing corporate media.
Okay, left-wing corporate
Corporate.
media.
That is key. So
Yeah.
anyway, you've been everywhere.
But we've done something different this time. We got ahead of the narrative and we started publishing press release. So the media is kind of forced to share our side this time.
Oh,
And they can't
interesting.
paint
Look at
us.
this. Speaking about the press release,
Yeah,
here it is right here. You sent this to me just the other day.
we've done 2. So that was the last one.
Okay, so this is, let me just center this. Unified Grassroots condemns NDP's attempt to smear citizen-led movement. Unified Grassroots strongly condemns the inflammatory and misleading statements made by the Saskatchewan NDP ahead of their scheduled press conference this morning. You did get ahead of it. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's great. Which attempt to portray our organization as far right, while they do that all the time, and left-wing corporate media as well, right? And suggest hidden ties to political parties. This is a desperate political tactic meant to discredit a democratic, citizen-led movement that's grown in strength because the people of Saskatchewan are tired of being ignored. What exactly did the NDP was talking about you personally in the legislature, weren't they?
Yeah, for like 30 minutes. It's so much so that the Speaker of the House had to stop them and said, we ask that people don't defame or talk negatively about people outside of this house who aren't here to be able to defend themselves. So he actually warned ahead of time because he kind of knew, I think, that was going to be coming because they had already done the presser. And I was made aware of what the presser was going to be. I have some friends in media. So I already knew it was coming. That's why we released this just before. I worked on it just before that morning. And they had used some wordings like far right, fringe, extremist, all of that. And I wanted to nip it in the bud because if we don't share our side or basically show the public who we actually are, the left-leaning corporate media will do it for us, and they will do it with their own narrative. So they'll use quotes from NDP and that'll be plastered, far right organization leading petition, things like that. So we wanted to get ahead of it and we issued a press release. And what that does, it forces them to do balanced reporting. When us conservatives usually don't talk to them or don't do interviews or don't get ahead of the narrative, they report what they want. But when we do that, they're forced to share the quotes from our press release to talk about the press release, because if they don't, then they're liable for not reporting fairly, and we can actually file a complaint and it will go somewhere. So this time we kind of played the hand that the conservatives don't usually do, and I think they should. And it's actually something I learned from Americans. So
how did you learn it? Like just watching Fox News or what was it?
No.
Oh, you had that big seminar last year that you went to, right?
Well, there was that, but we
or
actually
that you actually did it in Saskatchewan. Yes,
we did one in Saskatchewan, yeah, and some came, and I've also been taking some training from some of the organizations down there just on how to run an activist organization, because obviously there's a lot more in the US that are conservative, so we can learn a thing or two from them. And yeah, it's one of the things that they taught us. Don't wait till they define you. Define yourself first. And that's what we've been doing, and that's what we're going to keep doing.
Why is the NDP so terrified of you at Unified Grassroots?
I think it's an obsession. To be That's the only thing I can think of because, like, you don't see them attack other citizens the way they attack me. But every time they've attacked me, it's actually turned around and worked against them. And I don't think this one's going to be any different. So, um, I don't know. Maybe because they see that they try to demonize me, but it doesn't really work because I'm not. I'm not mean back. I'm very calculated. I'm very graceful. I will offer them grace. I'm very compassionate in my approach, and I think that and I'm a former lefty. I know how they think, and I think that bothers them even more because I used to be one of them. So
It's funny. I've every time that you've been on the show in the past, I always say, Nadine, you've got to get more teeth in your statements, right? No, that's what I've said. And you've always maintained this decorum and this fairness about you. And I think that's working in your favor right now because,
yeah.
as much as the NDP yell and scream about how, fringe and right wing, like knuckle dragging that you and your organization are supposed to be, you're not. I mean, look at you, for goodness sakes.
And that's the thing, right? And I think that's why they're so afraid because conservatives there's several things. Conservatives will tend to go um more that well, the ones that usually rise will tend to go more aggressive. Like if you look at the US, and I'm not saying that that's not needed. It is also needed in Canada because it does move the needle. But where there was always a hole is like the people were trying to stay somewhat in the middle to try to bring the middle ground people a little bit more to the right, which is what my goal is. I'm not for the people who are fully aware of everything that's happening that there's other people for that. I'm for the ones who are still brainwashed like I used to be and trying to get them out of that kind of that never ending head
They're
in the
just
sand.
Yeah, they're definitely. I mean, the whole elbows up thing. I want to talk to you about that because you've been
Mm.
studying all of this. You just reminded me of it, and I think that you probably have some pretty good insights on this. How many people are now involved with Unified Grassroots in terms of membership? Not necessarily active members, but people who are on your mailing list,
Well, mailing, we've never done a mail out.
email list, then contact
Email
list.
lists, we probably have like 6,000, I would say, email that we
Wow.
but we haven't been super well, we did one last week, but we hadn't been doing it just because the cost of the website was so expensive and we didn't really have the funds, but we weren't really asking for the funds either. We To be honest, the fight constantly, and I'm going to be completely blunt with you, up until last week, like people had become so complacent. So we did a training thing and we had great attendance and we're like, we want to do another one in Saskatoon. We'd like some donations to be able to get it going. And we got nothing. So I'm
Wow.
like, okay, well maybe you guys aren't that motivated for change. Maybe this things need to get worse before people are actually willing to put efforts towards that. So and then we kind of decided, well, if we're not going to reach the people in that way or train the people to be able to fight, maybe we need to change our avenue. And that's where we decided, okay, let's do a show because a lot of the problems we have are happening at the federal level, but we're super successful. School board were super successful. We ran 30, and I say we as in it's not UG that ran them. We just encouraged and had 30 run, and then we sent them a bunch of volunteers to help out. No financial donations. This is another thing they're insinuating that we gave them money. We don't have money to give anyone. And we encouraged a lot of people to run in nomination, to go vote in nomination. That was what our whole drive was with the town halls. And we got 25 out of 30 school board trustees elected, which is a huge number. But we never published
Congratulations.
it.
That's great. That's great because we know what was happening at that level, right?
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, we focused on the most activist, problematic school board trustees as well. So a lot of them got booted out, which is great. But again, we encourage people to run for city council. So we have tons of people all over the province that got elected to city council, whether it's reeve or mayor or things like that. And when I say our people, I mean like freedom-minded people who are aware to where this country is going. So it's funny because they were attacking one of the MLAs because I said in a podcast he's one of us, and he's a freedom loving guy, and who would have think that's like a negative thing?
That's
But
right. It's crazy how that narrative has shifted. And the same
yeah,
thing with elbows up. Everybody was so proud to be a Canadian for a couple of months during the election campaign. But, 3 years ago in Ottawa, you couldn't fly the American or the Canadian flag because it was
I
a symbol of
know.
hate. Like, come on already. Right.
And even
So,
elbows up is so insane. That's something you don't want done in hockey. That's
yeah,
actually a negative thing
it's a
that you
penalty.
would never cheer for. Yeah, and not just that, it's super dangerous. Like
Yeah.
it's but it just goes to show it doesn't matter, right? They'll follow that brainwashed narrative. But yeah, so we kind of went a bit dormant, and then the election happened. I guess we didn't. I didn't. I still was doing a show. I was doing a show every day, and childcare issues kind of arose, so it slowed down a bit. It's twice a week now, but that was growing. Like we're getting 10 to 15,000 views per episode. So for Saskatchewan, that's pretty decent. And then the election happened, and I got really, really discouraged, not with the Conservative Party or anything the Conservative did. I got really discouraged with the Canadian voter. Um, After 10 years of what we've had, and Carney's no different than Trudeau, I realized, okay, we're going downhill, and we're going downhill fast. What's the best way to protect my family from this? And that's kind of my husband's like, we need to either move or work towards getting Saskatchewan out of Canada. So before we go to route of moving, we're like, okay, let's fight. Let's fight for a province. And we pulled the membership, and the numbers were shocking. The membership of like Unified Grassroots, 66% wanted to separate and join the US, which is way higher than I thought. 24% wanted to separate and form its own country, and then 8% wanted to stay. And I know there's a 2% missing in there, is because people kept adding options, and we just wanted to know of those three, what is it? So we kept deleting them. And then we realized, okay, if 90% want to separate, then maybe we need to move on this as an organization. So, and Alberta was moving on it, and I wasn't seeing much from Saskatchewan. And really, there's, other than other political parties like the Buffalo or maybe Sask United, if they had moved on this, it would have just caused more splitting the vote. And when in reality, we just need this movement to be nonpartisan. Let's work with what we've got and go in that direction. So yeah, we decided to go ahead with it. And I say it in that way because I'm just
Was that
realizing how
you and your husband just sitting there going, we got to do something, and then you just made that decision right there at the spur of the moment, like what, a week and
well,
a half ago?
he was saying it, and then I went to my board and I said, where are you guys at on this? And every single board member is like, it's what we need to do. So it wasn't even like a question there wasn't even one board member that was like, oh, maybe. So then we're like, okay, well, it's going to be a lot of work. Are you guys willing to put in more work? Like, we're going to need to restructure the way we've been doing, because I can't do it all. So we had a big meeting on doing that. So we're delegating a lot of stuff. We're going to try to get a lot of volunteers to help this time, like actually organize volunteers to help. And I reached out to a few people before I went ahead, like some of the people that have been talking about separation, Alberta Prosperity Project as well, because I wanted to know, has anyone been in touch with them before we move ahead? We didn't want to step on anyone's toes. And so far they said they had heard nothing from Saskatchewan. When I explained who we were, they're like, oh, you're perfect to do this. You already have the structure, the people. And then I reached out to Preston Manning. So I had a chat with him. This was before we decided to go ahead with it. and a few key people that I know that who've been in politics that I trust their judgment. And after doing that, praying about it, we decided, okay, yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard, but someone's got to do it. And that's why I might sound like a bit discouraged.
No, you
But
don't sound that way at all. You sound like you're in the mode, maybe a little trepidatious, because this is a big job, and you've
yeah,
got a lot of people to reach coming
I
soon. And you're also, I mean, I know that you've been a target in the past, mostly from NDP types
mhm,
and lefty types, just like all of us independent media have. But I had Keith Wilson on the other night from, I think I told you this, from Alberta, from Edmonton,
mhm,
and he's right in the middle of all of the Alberta
mhm.
sovereignty stuff. And we had this discussion about how hard they are going to come after people like you and the
Yeah,
Alberta Prosperity Project and the Republican Party of Alberta, which is merged now with the Independence Party of Alberta. There's a lot of just regular people, like people who go to work
mhm.
every day, people who pay a mortgage, just regular, your neighbor. A lot of people. And in Alberta, I'm not so sure about Saskatchewan. I'll talk to you about this, but there's a lot of money behind this movement too. People who are absolutely fed up with the way things are going with the federal government. Danielle Smith says she doesn't want Alberta to separate. She wants a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada, whatever that means. And I know in your case, Scott Moe has said, no, anybody on this side of the benches here, we're all in favor of staying in Canada. So what is the mechanism? First of all, are you prepared for that kind of firestorm? Because it's going to come. They're going to be
Yeah,
relentless.
yeah, it's already happening in the spiritual sense. Like I can and this it's some people will say that what she's talking about is kind of cuckoo, but I can sense when I'm under spiritual attack, witchcraft attack, whatever you want to call it, that's already happening. And I've already got now 40 people working, kind of praying for our organization, praying for myself, my family, for direction. But I did see what Keith was saying. I saw a clip as well on Ezra where he says they're going to send everything they've got, right?
Yep.
Especially, and we're not just up against like the NDP, up against the global elites in the world that doesn't want anyone to stand on their own. They want to centralize everything, not decentralize, which is essentially what we're trying to do, right?
Yep.
So I do expect that to happen. It was a discussion actually we had last night during our board meeting where I said, are any of you willing to put your name on it too, so I'm not the only target? Because it's easy to take one down. It's harder to take more than one down. And I don't want to sound like that extreme, but at the same time, like if we're going to be putting in messages, unfortunately, it's almost like a negative that our organization is so tied to my name and my face. So whatever the organization does, it's a reflection on me. But if they can take a person down, whatever ways, but that's the other thing. I don't have like skeleton in my closet. So
They're not going to get you. I mean, look, you're a happily married mother of 4 who's a Christian and
if
believes
they
in freedom.
dig, it's just going to hurt their cause. They're going to see, oh, she's like a former lefty that used to hate Trudeau, that used to vote for Trudeau and hate Trump. Like if they dig far back, they'll see that I dislike Harper. Like it's not going to help their case. But what I mean by that, it wouldn't shock me if there was attempts to try to get to me, like through my husband, like filing bogus complaints with the College of Physicians on my husband. We saw that happen during COVID. It wouldn't shock me if someone was to come out and do like a false allegation against my husband or anything like that. We are prepared to push back if that happens. Like we've kind of talked about it and talked about how that could potentially be something that would occur. So we are ready for it. I don't like hold them to the same standard as I would myself, because the people who will be fighting back or pushing back are not people who have moral character that you and I have.
Yep.
There's nothing that's off the table like for them. So, and you're seeing that even in the attacks and some of the stuff, it's so disingenuous. But we're going to keep pushing back. Now, the question is, what is the public going to do? Are they going to listen to this and listen to the fear and go right along with the fear? Because that's what they're going to push, right? They're going to push fear. Oh, the sky is falling if you go this way or that way. Or are they going to remember the last several decades and what the current status quo has led to? Or are they going to say enough's enough? And I think it's going to be really important to have like leaders all throughout Alberta and Saskatchewan to kind of bring those people back to reality when they start pushing fear. And if there's anything that I'm good at is doing that. That's what I did during COVID, and just bring it back. Okay, let's talk back to reality, not what they're saying, not what they're pushing, and doing it in a calm, really compassionate, understanding way. I think then we might be able to go in the right direction. But this is a lot more work than the other stuff that we've done, I think. And we're up against a lot more. And that's just the reality of it. We're going to need more funds. So I think we've had like $1,800 come in, but our website cost has just gone up by $400 a month.
Yeah,
Just
I
a
know that
month.
feeling. Yeah.
So
Yeah. What's the website again? Unified Grassroots.
unifiedgrassroots.com.
.com. All
And
right. So go
if
ahead.
you go look at the signatures, I think it said 3,200, but that's not the accurate number of how many people have signed it. Because some people have just signed up to our website, which doesn't show up in the signature. So they've just subscribed and signed up under our website, which technically is the same thing because everyone's telling them go to Unified Grassroots. So we're probably close to 5,000 signatures and signups. So
In Alberta, Keith was telling us the other night that there are 13 different groups who are all working towards Alberta sovereignty, which is the first step. You know, if you know when you were talking about the poll that you did amongst the members of Unified Grassroots just a few moments ago, and 66% of people wanted to leave Canada and join the United States.
And that's
Go
not
ahead.
the sentiment of the province, though. I think that would be much lower. I talked to APP, and theirs was more like 12%. But I think that percentage, we were founded during COVID. That Facebook group is the following for that is mostly kind of around COVID, and a lot of people saw the Constitution of the Americans and see that as way more safe than what we have, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom here. So I think that's why people are kind of leaning more in that direction.
Mhm.
But I don't know if I'm personally leaning more in that direction. I don't want to go from the controls of Ottawa to the controls of DC. And while it might be good for us now, we don't know in 3-4 years from now what it's going to look like, right? I would like to see something where we're our own country, but maybe we have the currency of the US. Maybe there's more like trade, easier trade between Canada and the US. But yeah, I don't know what the general public would for sure want, but I think it's leaning more independence, own country, own structures, maybe a republic, a Western republic. I think that's what I'm hearing more from the people. And then, but just better relationship with the US.
You know, what's interesting is Keith and I went through the process. At least it was a 2-hour show, and there's a lot of information to take in. People are messaging me the last few days saying, Shadow, I watched that show 3 times already, and I still didn't get everything. Because he's such a smart guy, an experienced guy. He's a constitutional lawyer as well. So he knows, all the little ins and outs, plus the negotiation part of it as well. But what it boiled down to was simply, okay, so each province in Canada is in fact a sovereign territory, and the government of the province at any given time can decide what it is they want to do moving forward. And there are mechanisms through the Clarity Act that allow each province, not just Alberta, Quebec, or Saskatchewan, to gain independence if they want it. That would be the first step. Right. So gaining your independence from Confederation would be step number 1. And then after that, it would be, okay, so what do we want to do now? Because we're a sovereign territory, right? So what's next? Do we want to have negotiations with the United States and become a protectorate? Do we want to become our own republic? Right. And so these are the discussions these 13 groups are going to be having in Alberta. And I think that maybe you're a little bit behind them, but in terms of all of that. But are there other groups in Saskatchewan that are? I know that there's people in Saskatchewan who feel this way, and I know that there's some with very large voices on social media as well. Have you managed to have conversations with any of them?
Yeah, so there's a guy who started a change.org petition. So we've had conversation with him. He's actually shared the data with us. We haven't entered it or anything. He just kind of was trying to give us a glimpse of who was signing his petition. I think that one's up to 6,000. So people could have signed both, or it could be complete people doing two different, and then we'll eventually merge it together. As for working with other groups, we have like assigned someone, our VP, to go direct one-on-one, build relationship with some of the other kind of freedom groups throughout Saskatchewan, which we've worked with them in the past. So there's some throughout the whole province. The only ones that we didn't, even during the freedom movement, is anyone who would push like a political party, because we are a nonpartisan organization. If it was a political party group, we kind of stayed away from working with them because we didn't want to become partisan. So it doesn't mean we're not going to be going towards the same goal. It's just we won't be pushing for a new political party or another political party to be the answer. If we want to influence change, our greatest chance is at getting more involved in the current party, whether it's the NDP side or I know it's kind of funny, because I think that this is why they're afraid and they're freaking out, because when we do our presentation, we tell people, get a political party membership. We could literally outnumber the NDP at their next convention and take over the entire party. We have the numbers, and that's just how democracy works. And I'm not saying that that's what we're going to do, but that's just that's how democracy works. And when we teach people how to get democratically involved, it influences huge amounts of change. Like, let's say at the SAS party convention had 600, I think 50 people. If we got even a small percentage of UG to get a political party membership, we could literally like get rid of Scott Moe and put a independent type leader in there. Like we have the numbers to do that. It would be so easy. I'm not saying that's what we're going to do, but the SAS party knows this. And Danielle Smith said this in an interview with Vasi. She says, if we don't move on this, there's going to be a new party formed that will split the vote, and we'll get in a worse situation. So they have no choice to listen to the people, because now, like Albertans and Saskatchewan people are getting informed exactly how you influence the change. And before, they just kind of figured they would never know. Right.
You know what's interesting? I mean, what you just said there, like I did see, and I've got a clip of that interview that you were talking about, Danielle Smith and Vashi Capellos. It's 5 minutes long. I don't want to play it right now, but she does say exactly that. And you know, she wouldn't answer. Like Vashi kept asking her, so why don't you just squash it? What if there is an independence movement there? Why don't you just quash it? Why don't you just not allow it? Why don't you just say it's not on the table? Because that's not democracy. That's not representing the people in your writings. Even though Danielle didn't actually say those words, she kind of, wormed her way around it. Now, what we've got in Saskatchewan is Scott Moe, the Saskatchewan Party, and pretty much all of his cabinet saying, no, we're not going to be at all interested in independence or separating. And of course, we know where the NDP stands. But as you say, you can influence them. You've done it before.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you...
Not me, but the people can. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, you and the organization is what I'm saying, the people. And so, you got to get in their heads and say to them, look, if you guys don't at least start to listen and possibly come up with some solutions for this, then you're going to be in a world of hurt when the next election rolls.
I don't need to say it. They already know.
Okay. That's a good thing. So what is the because Smith just made it easier in Alberta for a citizen-led.
What is the mechanism? Okay, the easiest mechanism is every single person who follows Unified Grassroots get a political party membership. Show up at that convention. get on boards. Right now, MLAs throughout all of Saskatchewan, the ones that are sitting and the ones that didn't get elected, their boards are currently having election to elect their board. And usually there's only 10 people who show up at those elections. So you literally could take over every MLA's board in the province in the next like several months. And I'm
then
just
you would
saying this because this is how democracy works. And once you have majority of the boards, you can call an emergency AGM and either boot Scott Moe. And I'm not saying do this. I'm just saying this is how the system is. You could literally boot him or say, if you don't move on this separatism, we're going to find someone who will. But they can do this with the NDP too. Actually, it would probably be easier to do this with the MDP. The only difference is when you get a membership, you have to sign that you agree to their party priority, and maybe people would have a hard time doing that. But I'm just saying this is how the system is. When people say the people's voice, the people don't have a voice, they do. They just don't know where to have that voice.
Yeah,
So
that's true. I'm going to throw up the results of the last election here. This is from last year's Saskatchewan election. The Saskatchewan Party, 471,087 total votes in the entire province, of which the
that's
Saskatchewan
low.
Party, that is low, considering I think there's probably 300,000 more eligible voters in the province than everybody else is under 18. But the Saskatchewan Party gets 52% of the vote. The NDP gets under 40%, and then the rest goes to Sask United, the Greens. I think the Buffalo Party was in there as well. So that Saskatchewan Party vote is over 50% of the voting public in the province. And you would probably need all of them to say we want out of Canada if the situation remains the same. So when we get back to the mechanism and you say, yeah, it's obviously the people, but is there something that can be done in Saskatchewan? Is there room in government right now for a binding petition? If you get a certain amount of signatures, you
Well,
probably looked into that.
yeah, so in Saskatchewan, there it's a little bit different than Alberta. Alberta, I think they need 170,000 signatures to do a referendum vote. In Saskatchewan, we don't have a referendum vote option that's done by the general public. We can't do a petition and get a referendum. There's no option. What we can do is do a petition, and if we get 15%, which is about 122,000, give or take a little bit, and then you can do a vote to the public. However, that vote is non-binding. So a plebiscite is non-binding. The government doesn't need to do anything about it, even if they vote. But it's not, you don't need to have 52% or over 50% of the province. What you need is a certain percentage of the public to actually go vote in the plebiscite vote. And out of those, you need a majority vote. So let's say only 51% go and vote, and you need half of that. You might only need 25% of the province to affect the change technically.
But
Now,
if it's non-binding, the government could say, no, no, no. So this is the thing, like when are Canadian politicians, and we had this discussion last night on the show, when are these Canadian politicians going to understand that what's happening right in front of their faces is there are grassroots movements all over the country, and they're happening on independent media. So shows like yours, mine, Frank Vaughn. I saw that you guys were doing a show together the other night. Of course, you've got Rebel and Western Standard, and you've got Juno News. You got Clyde Do Something, all those YouTubers, Jasmine Lane. We're the ones who are pretty much now guiding the people and giving them the information that they need. It's not that we're trying to guide them in a certain direction. We're just showing them, look, this is what you're not going to see on social media, or sorry, on the left-wing corporate media. But when are the politicians going to wake up to this is my question. I mean, it seemed to me that Pierre Poilievre, even though he's pretty good on social media in terms of leaving little videos and showing videos of his rallies and all of that, just refused to engage any interviewers who were willing to sit down and just talk to him about whatever. Why are they scared of that?
because the old school politicians are telling them to be scared of it, and they really suck at defining themselves before they're being defined. So they're so afraid of the media attacking them and labeling them, and because it's been effective when the media does that. It's been effective, and they have failed at defining themselves ahead of that. And I tweeted about this. I weighed in on the whole Joe Rogan and Pierre not going on there.
Yep.
I said the best thing that Pierre could have done, and this is, if I was his advisor, this is what I would have advised him. I would have said, you should go for several reasons, but the biggest reason, there's going to be millions of clips that are going to get shared with Canadians and Canadians who don't necessarily watch Joe Rogan, but they might watch you or someone else, and you'll share a clip that was really awesome or good, where it showed the human side and the non-politician side of Pierre, and that alone will reach a lot of voter base. But you don't just go and show up and do it and then let the media spin it whatever you want. What he should have done is announce ahead of time and stated why he's going. Stated, even if he had some concerns about how the perception of what some Canadians would be, this is why I'm going on this podcast. I want to increase better relationship with the Americans, because right now we need more people convincing Trump not to do the tariffs. So do all of these things the same way Danielle did this before she went to the States. She defined herself ahead of time, and media had no choice to report on that because they put out the statements ahead of time. And
do you believe that the media in Canada is still obligated to telling the truth just because Unified Grassroots or whoever puts out a press release?
I think they're going to try to not to, but then we have to hold them accountable when they don't. But if you look at any report in the last week on what's happening between the NDP and our organization, it's completely different reporting than before. So
is it?
Yeah. I've read them, and I haven't left completely angry. I'm like, oh, they actually reported fairly on our organization. They used my quotes. Oh, great. So I think, but how many politicians have you seen do that?
In Canada?
They don't. In the States, they do.
Yeah. Trump went on Joe Rogan, and he went on all the other big podcasts as well. And I think that's probably what got him the presidency, to be completely honest. Now, we're in the middle of a trade war, so they say, with the Americans about these tariffs and whatnot. So it could have been seen. And the way they try to paint Danielle Smith is, well, she went to the United States. She's Trump's best buddy. She's a traitor. That's actually what the NDP throws out there in the corporate media.
The general public sees that, and they're like, she's fighting for us. She's going to the trenches and fighting for us. Yeah. So only the far left that you'll never get vote for you or support you anyways will see it as a traitor type thing. Like, if you look at the voices, the reasonable people are not writing that. It's the crazy, the loud crazies, right? That will never vote for Danielle Smith.
So let me ask you then, how did Carney win this freaking election? I mean,
fear. They pulled the same thing they did during COVID. They made every Canadian afraid that Trump's going to come and take over Canada. And if Carney's not the one to stand up to Trump, then it's going to be a conservative who's just going to fold because he's just like Trump. Like, that's the narrative that they pushed. And even I have family still back home. They were hoodwinked by this too. They hated Trudeau, and they're like, oh, Carney's so great. But they don't realize how extreme he is. We're going to start seeing that as did you see his policy where he says, I'll give you a classic example. And I talked about this with Mark Mitchell on Rasmussen Reports today. He puts an announcement. We're going to go hard on immigration. We're going to cap immigration at 5%. So we're going to work on this problem of too much immigration. We're going to do you a favor. 5% is over 2 million people a year. It's more than what Trudeau was actually doing. But Canadians are so hoodwinked. They don't even recognize what 5% means.
You want to see an average Carney voter? Here, look at this.
Yeah. Carney won, so.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Why did you vote for Carney?
Because he makes most sense out of people, so.
What makes the most sense to you from his policies?
I don't know.
Is there one specific policy that you were really interested in of his?
No.
Okay, thanks for your time.
All right. Bye-bye.
They didn't look at the policy. They voted for him because they were afraid of the alternative. Look at the NDP all going liberal. We talked about that.
Yeah.
You see the polling, it all went liberal because it's not like Jagmeet Singh could be a contender to dealing with Trump. He's so unserious. So
No, but
they all
the
went,
Conservatives did get a good deal, not as much as
yeah.
the Liberals, but they did get a good deal of the NDP vote, and we saw that. The
Did
young,
they?
yeah, oh yeah, the young people who were
Oh,
working in the industries, trades, they were definitely on Poilievre's side. I saw it myself in the lineups at some of the rallies. Not enough, obviously. I mean, the
mhm.
Conservatives did better in this election than they have in any other election before.
Yeah.
Over 8 million votes. But the problem is, as you say, the NDP collapsed. But those people out there, should there be some kind of, this is a conversation I had with Rob Boudelier the other night, the patriotic dad out of Alberta, who used to be a member of APP. He works with the Alberta Prosperity Project. We were talking about Alberta sovereignty. And he said, shouldn't there be some kind of regulations for who can vote? Right? I mean, just because
You're
you're
sounding like
Canadian.
the left here.
Well, no. I mean, think about this, because if you're Canadian and you're 18 and over, that's pretty much the only
Yeah.
condition you need. Shouldn't you? Now, Rob goes a little bit more extreme than I do. I mean, he says, well, maybe you should have to show that you're you're not a net taker from the government. In other words, you're not on welfare, any sort of government social assistance, and you're not paying back into the system. So you're obviously going to vote for the same government that's giving you all of that money. But if you're actually contributing more to the system than you're taking out of it, then maybe that's what he said. What I think is a very simple test, and that is name 4 candidates who are running in your riding and the parties that they're with. That would be it for me, right? Because
Yeah.
that guy, that clip that I just showed, shows me that there's so many people in this country, and you're right about the fear. I agree with you about that. But there's so many people who absolutely have no idea what they're doing.
Mhm.
And they're the ones, Nadine. I mean, they've got a big voice in deciding who's going to lead this country. And
They're
it's
the ones who
terrifying.
decide the election, actually. If you look, the left will have their clear people who are always going to be left-leaning, left voting, who are very informed on the left. And then you'll have those people on the right who show up to political events, political parties and stuff. But it's the middle people that decide the election. Now, knowing this, the politicians should figure out how to reach those people. And usually they do that by door knocking. That's one of the best ways you can reach them face to face, that they get to know you, they build a relationship with you. That's actually the best way to kind of lean a vote towards a person. Now, that is a lot harder in today's age, especially if we like, it's harder in rural communities, but rural usually goes kind of the conservative side. But in apartment buildings, that's when it's harder. They can't really reach the apartment buildings and stuff. So in the cities, you see that a lot. Now, they need to figure out how to use left-leaning corporate media to
Left
their
wing,
advantage.
wing. They don't just
Left
lean
wing.
left. They are
Okay,
hard
left
left.
wing. Okay, I'm so the new term.
You got it.
So left-wing corporate media, they have to figure out how to use it to their advantage. So, for example, that Apple situation with Pierre went insanely viral. A few times where Pierre went back and forth, he showed like, okay, maybe they're not being honest about something. They're challenging the status quo, and Trump did this phenomenally well. He enraged the media. They couldn't stop reporting on him. Like when he did his whole McDonald's restaurant thing,
Yeah.
that's what they talked about. When Biden called MAGA supporters trash, Donald Trump shows up in a garbage truck with like a garbage vest, and he did a speech, and it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. And he was like charming and charismatic in his speech, and people saw like the fun side of him. Like, conservatives need to figure out how they can use this obsession to smear and twist the narrative to their advantage. But they're so afraid. They're so afraid, and they won't do that. But the left does that. Like, look, they did the video with Mike Myers, which that kind of backfired hard.
Well, the last couple of days it did. I mean, he's been
Oh,
named in the Diddy trial,
case. Yeah. But
but
that stuff works, but you don't see conservatives doing that kind of stuff. And you know why? Because every conservatives that have risen up, they've distanced themselves from. Like every conservative voice, they'll be like, we can't touch that. We can't. Every conservative organization, we can't touch that. And those conservative organizations never really grow into influencing or growing big enough that the public is like, oh, okay, yeah, I joined that. Pierre is going to speak at their event. The only person who has, I would say, is Daniel Smith. And the US, they team up with these because these are the boots on the ground that will knock on the doors that you can't knock.
you know what's interesting is how controlled the conservative campaign was. I got kicked out of the Polyev rally in Winnipeg as a known agitator. And I was just standing there with my hands in my pockets, minding my own business, waiting for my buddy to come out of the can. And a couple of security guys came out. They dragged me to the back and they called me a known agitator. This was after I had talked to everybody standing in line to get into this rally on my page, on the show. It was seen 70,000 times, that video. And you know what other video was seen even more than that? Was the video I did 10 minutes later when I said they kicked me out for being a known agitator. That is the problem. Like they're trying, and ironically, during that particular rally, there was a couple of actual known agitators in there calling Pierre names, and they had to kick those two out. But that's nothing I would have ever done. I was there covering it as a journalist, and so I was shocked by that. There's video that Wright Blend has taken the last couple of days in Ottawa. He's our buddy out there, works with Chris Dacey. And so the Conservatives had this caucus meeting Tuesday, I think it was. And so Larry Brock's walking out, Jamil Giovanni, Roman Baber, and Pierre himself. And they all just kept walking. They wouldn't stop and they wouldn't talk to the media. They just put their heads down and put up these fake smiles and thumbs up. And why don't they stop and engage? Do they not understand the impact that the independent media is having? Or is it just cowardice, like you said earlier?
I think it's bad advice, if I'm honest. And I don't think things are going to change until they start. I don't think Pierre necessarily doesn't want to talk to them or doesn't. I think he's just been told you can't seem too MAGA, you can't seem too for the Conservatives because you won't win. And the thing is, unfortunately, I think this loss will make that worse. Like, and I don't know if they'll learn from that. Just look at how his campaign is going right now. I'm hoping that he'll learn from that and kind of engage more the conservative movements and the conservative people more than just the Conservative Party. So, but that's not the Pierre that we had before. Like if you look at Pierre before, he would have like challenged the media. It's just like when it was during the election, they're like, be careful, you're going to win this unless you screw it up. It's almost like that's what they kept telling. You're going to win this unless you screw it up. So don't do any misstep. Don't do any failures or don't do. And anytime there'd be a scandal, instead of getting ahead of it and again, sharing his message using that scandal, like the whole, the clock, the ticking clock, biological clock. That was all over the news. He should have done a press release and say, look, these are things that my wife tells me that she's hearing from women. These are things that I'm hearing myself from women. I use that term because that's how serious the situation is. And if it offends someone, like he should have gotten ahead. And they don't. And this is a huge failure.
Did you find it when he said biological clock? Did you find that offensive at all?
No, it's a reality. I'm 40 years old. My husband and I want to have another kid. The clock is ticking.
You got four,
So,
man. Like, you think four is enough? Four's not enough.
well, I have 4, but I have 2 with my now husband.
Mm.
Um, I, he would have 10 if I was willing to go through that all over again. But we feel like, you know what, someone has to reproduce for one. So don't give me a hard time. You should be supporting people like
I
me
am.
reproducing.
No, I'm
But
only asking. I mean, like, because I thought that but I'm a man, right? So I look at that,
yeah,
the biological clock. Okay, like I've heard about that my entire life. I've heard women say to me, "My biological clock is moving." Like when I was much younger, man.
it's a term we women use constantly.
Yeah. So
So
why, when he said it, was it all of a sudden such a bad thing? Because they
it,
spun it that way.
they spun it that way. Yeah, yeah. And unfortunately they didn't get ahead of it. And like we on the online kind of defended, especially a lot of women came forward, but then you'll have the left leaning, they're so coordinated too. You can tell they're coordinated. It's like they have like a little group chat with all like the loud like leftist voice, and they'll put it on there, and then it'll just like be a parrot, parrot, parrot. And this is human psychology. You know, when things get repeated over and over again,
Yeah.
you start believing it. And
Yeah.
the left uses this so good. Like they
Yeah.
do. They're phenomenal at it.
Who was that ex-liberal climate minister? They called her Climate Barbie. What was her?
Oh,
I forget her
um,
name. Blonde.
yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Anyway, there
Uh,
was a video of her saying that very same thing. She was at a
yes,
bar in
yes.
Newfoundland like years
She's
ago and
bragging about it.
drinking, what is it?
Helena, no, not Helena McKenna. McKenna. What's her first name?
Catherine McKenna.
Catherine McKenna. Yeah.
Right. Just looking at
What?
comments. Thanks, you guys. And so she's drinking, what is the Newfoundland? Screech? Has a
Yeah,
couple of
she's drunk
screeches.
and she's saying it's okay. If you just say it enough, they're gonna believe it.
Yeah, and louder. They said louder and repeat over and over, the biggest lie in the world, and they'll believe you. So
Yeah.
so why would people believe that Mark Carney, a billionaire banker who didn't disclose his personal financial holdings before putting them into a blind trust, why would people in Canada believe that that guy, especially after what we saw the other day when he was down there, like sitting there like a scolded kid, why would they believe that Mark Carney was any better to deal with Donald Trump than Pierre Poilievre?
I just think it's the whole he's not a conservative. He's more supportive of the Democrat. So maybe he'll kind of push back more. I don't know. But like what was even more sickening is just see them say how great of a job he's done.
Like,
Have you seen that online? They're like, "Oh, he did so phenomenal. He stood for Canada."
well, that's
I'm
what
like,
the left-wing corporate media is saying, Nadine.
I
That's
know,
what
I know.
it's a great job, Mark. What? He sat down. He said, "You've been a transformative president who's been working on behalf of the working people of this country." And I just, Mr. President, Mr. President. And what did Trump call him? Mark. Like, dude got owned down there. Trump said
yeah.
right in front of his face and right in front of all the media, when the media asked him, "Is there any chance of you ever dropping the tariffs against Canada?" Immediate answer was, "Nope." Why
No,
not?
we're not
Media
gonna
said,
do it.
and he says, "That's just how it is." That was it. And Carney tried to get in there on that. Too late. Next question. He got owned.
Did you see how many times Carney was like, and he didn't talk? If that was me, I would have cut in and I said, Mr. President, I would have cut in and said something. And I like
See,
not
look, I mean, that's
necessarily.
something we haven't discussed yet. I mean, I wouldn't be so blunt about it as you say. Canada's not for sale, Mr. Carney. And what did Trump say back to him? Well, nothing's forever, right? So the same thing with the tariffs. The bottom line is the guy is probably the best negotiator in the world, Trump.
Mhm.
I mean, I've
Yeah.
read his book, The Art of the Deal, and I've been going through Carney's book, and I will tell you that Trump is going to own this guy just like he's owned all of the wokies since he's been in office for the past, 80 to 100 days. They haven't got a chance. And that's what we elected. Thank God it's only a minority situation, and possibly through some miracle we can get rid of them in the next year to 18 months so that we can go ahead and do this again. And the lessons, hopefully the conservatives learn some lessons. Hopefully they watch shows like this, Nadine, and they see the people talking, not just the two of us, but look at the comments, you guys. Look at what people are saying. This is your base. And you need to listen to them if you ever want to win government in this country.
And that's the thing. Like, I'm not even a PPCer. I'm a CPC supporter.
Yeah.
Like I like the MP that I have in Saskatchewan here, minus Kelly Block. I'm actually like friends with her. Like, I knew them before I started doing all of this. So I'm not even someone who wishes someone else was like running against them or winning. I actually think that they would be really good. I also think that they're doing big mistakes, and I think it's costing them the election. So, and I'm not saying that as someone who, again, has a bone to pick. This is someone who has had training after training on how to run campaigns, how to get ahead of messaging, how to sway public opinion. I mean, we did that masterfully in Saskatchewan during COVID. We had like strategic things we were doing that actually worked and were effective. So, and I'm not like your typical like old school politician. Again, I'm a former lefty, so I know what they do. I know how they work. And they need to change their ways, or it's going to keep being the same. I will give Pierre credit. His social media game was top notch. His videos were really good, like very engaging, very informative. But again, they were still political videos. I wanted to see like the heart. He had done a video when he was running.
He started bringing Anna out a lot in the last couple of weeks,
which was better.
But now, I mean, she walked out of the caucus meeting with him the other day, and now people are starting to say, "What's this, Yoko Ono?" Right?
I don't think
there's a happy medium.
Yeah. Remember the video where there's two videos that come to mind where you like see the human side of it, where they're leaving an event and he's carrying her because her feet are so sore.
Yeah.
And she's saying how much she's been on her feet all day. Like, that was the kind of stuff that people want to share. Like, this is a human side. They want to see the real them, not the what's your politician image, or that one where they're doing a Christmas drink and you can see that she runs the show at home because she's kind of running the show in the kitchen, right? With the drink. So it's kind of funny. You see that dynamic that you don't necessarily see in public. And it's like a dynamic that all married couple can kind of identify with a little bit. Like, so that kind of stuff, I think they didn't show that, which is what Joe Rogan would have been. It's a more calm, not scripted, just off the cuff. You don't know what questions are going to be. And you're just having a conversation like you and I.
Yep.
And they don't do that.
That's the key these days.
It needs to be authenticity. It needs to be authentic.
Yeah. Right from the heart.
And there's one video he did too that was phenomenal that even I wanted to share. Was he was walking in his old neighborhood. He was in front of his house and he's talking about what it was like to live there. And you could actually like feel it and identify with it. And it was coming from the heart. But then it became these slogans, these say the same thing.
The music and
homes, save the
streets. Build the homes, right? All that, and he was talking in slogans a lot as well. So you're right. We got to see that. I mean, he's got a special needs child.
He was doing so good at first, like in the restaurant, eating the bacon while he's eating. He's saying how everything's gone up. That was great video.
But it's all, even that part, and I understand what you're saying because I saw one of those myself and I went, wow, that wasn't bad. But then the slogans start again. And he is acting through all of that as well. Maybe just acting as himself, but it is partly scripted. On a Joe Rogan or even on a Shadow Davis show, you're talking just about your life. Like, I go all over the place in topics with people when we're talking, and I can go as long as 3 hours, 4 hours if the conversation's really good and people are digging it. right? And so you go on and you do that kind of a show, and it's a game changer, as you said earlier.
Mhm.
You pointed that out, right? He, like I said, he did do a couple of podcasts. He did one with our friend Jasmine.
Yeah, and Jasmine.
But Jasmine, like she's 28 years old, and she's not quite versed in this yet. She's new at it, right? She's been in media for a few years. I don't want to diss her because I like her and I think she's going places. She's very talented. But it could have been like, maybe you find a few people who have been around the block, you know, who can sit down and have that conversation with you and just have it, right? It's not about sitting there and reading questions from a piece of paper. It's
No.
about having the conversation and showing who you are in that conversation without pressure and without judgment. Just have it, man. Like, answer what is in your heart.
Mhm.
That may have been the thing that was lacking. Plus the fact that, you know, he was riding the for a year and a half, the carbon tax election. And then
Mhm.
it changed when Trump started announcing these tariffs, and he didn't pivot in time. And he let
Mhm.
the liberals have that ground. And that was, the media played right along with that too, right? Oh, this is going to be the worst tragedy. And Carney talking about what, another crisis, and how we're going to all be paying the price. And good Lord. I mean,
I think the direction he went to was a mistake too, because he pushed the fear, which just pushed more people to Carney. If he had said, you know what, like, we've had a strong relationship with the US, let's work on building that relation. Like, the economic impact of pushing back or doing counter tariffs is only going to be worse for Canada. Like, he should have used that messaging from the get-go, not just bashing Trump over and over. And I think that was a mistake too, because in that specific aspect, he pushed the fear and instead of hope. He might have pushed hope in other avenue, but in the one that was the biggest avenue for on the minds of most voters, that he wanted to bring to his side, he didn't show what the alternative could be. Like, he
Polyev, you mean?
yeah, like, Mark Mitchell today, he said, imagine if he had gone to the US, met with Trump and said, you know what, we're going to work together in removing some of this. We're going to work together in in having a stronger relationship between Canada and the US so we can become stronger against the world. Like, imagine had he done that.
Yeah.
Like, people would have been, oh, that there's a chance the tariffs will come down.
Well, he got on track, I think, the last couple of weeks when he started talking about Canada needs to be able to negotiate from a position of strength, and the liberals have
Yeah,
brought us down this road for 10 years and we're weak right now and we have no
that
chance.
was good messaging.
I don't think that there's any leader in Canada who can take on Donald Trump in a negotiation.
We just don't
I-
have the cards.
Well, we don't have the cards. You're right. Their economy is over 10 times larger than ours. We have no military to speak of compared to the Americans. We don't have anything to bargain with. And what surprised me the most out of this whole thing was that this whole elbows up thing worked with so many people who thought we're actually going to be able to fight the Americans. Are you guys out of your mind? How
They
on
were
earth?
laughing at Canadians with they it made a mockery of Canadians, the elbows up thing.
Yeah,
It really did.
yeah. But I compared it. You know those two dogs from the Bugs Bunny cartoons? You got the big bulldog, Spike, and then the little guy, forget his name.
No,
Hey,
I think
Spike, what are we going to do today, Spike?
Like the big bulldog with the derby hat just kind of smacks him aside. That's the Americans. And we're the little dog going like that, right? Like, we don't have a chance against them in anything. And for anybody to think that we were going to go and fight them and get a deal on our terms, completely and totally delusional. We do have a lot to offer. I mean, we've got natural resources in Saskatchewan. You guys have got potash and uranium and oil and agriculture. Manitoba's got rare earth. You guys have got rare earth minerals as well. Alberta's got oil and gas and, all kinds of technology happening across the prairies as well. I mean, there's a lot to offer to the United States. And I don't know what Donald Trump's end game is. There's a lot of different philosophies on it out there. Like, he wants us for a reason. What is it?
Mark thinks he wants Alberta and Saskatchewan
I think he does too. I think that is going to be the
because
first step.
it would be two red states, two
Yeah.
two Republican states, 4 more Senate seats that will break the balance. It wouldn't shock me if that was the case.
Yeah. He doesn't want Ontario because
No.
that would be a blue state. Same with Manitoba and
Yeah.
BC probably as well, depending on how they carve up the voting regions too, right?
Yeah.
Because all the electoral districts would change as well. So who knows? They'd probably gerrymander it back to the way it was before the Liberals actually got 100,000 extra votes in Pierre Poilievre's Carleton riding. So he lost his own riding.
There was a lot of gerrymandering in that, but what are your thoughts on, I've been trying to kind of figure out, there's a lot of still being counted where the Conservatives were winning by like 300 ballots and all of a sudden they disqualify 400 and it's a Liberal riding. Have you seen that?
I've seen that in BC, there were thousands of ballots that weren't returned to the electoral offices on time, 5,000 of them or something. But Elections Canada says, well, they were for ridings all across the country. Like there was one in Halifax. Well, what were the ballots for Halifax doing in British Columbia, first of all? And how could there be just that lack of awareness that these ballots stayed in somebody's office as opposed to actually going to be counted? How does that happen? And how does Elections Canada just issue a statement and that's the end of it? And why is the left-wing corporate media not reporting on it? You know, we've heard all kinds of stories.
I've heard it. And then there's the whole thing too, where they're saying if anybody brings question to the election integrity, that they're being offered money by Russia.
The Russians,
Heard that too?
yeah. I heard that from the Northern Exposure guys, the Northern Perspective couple. And
Yeah. Jasmine Lane had wrote something. There's a lot of really sketch stuff, but I call it Team Black.
yeah, I know.
There's Team Black that just tries to kind of manipulate, morph, and whatever. I do expect Team Black to come out to try to disparage or dissuade or kind of ruin the movement that's happening in Saskatchewan and Alberta. And like people have told me, Nadine, you have a hard time trusting people. And I'm like, yeah, because I've dealt with Team Black before, that I've done this before. Like we had that happen, like attempts, takeovers and stuff like that. So
what, of Unified Grassroots?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
Yeah.
wait a minute. I did know that. The Manitoba guy
did?
was a bit of a
Yeah,
dick.
but not just that. Create a website that was just like ours called United Grassroots and pretending to be us. Like we've had so many things. So now we're like really careful. We've kind of had to lock tight our organization. So now, unless the entire board is on board with kind of going in one direction, it just doesn't happen. So we've kind of made it more secure in a way, but yeah, I don't want to seem like
Paranoid.
paranoid
Over your shoulder
but-
all the time. I understand exactly what you're saying. I mean, I've had to deal with Team Black over and over and over again. Many of us have, to different extents, right?
Even
And
like
it's tough.
people trying to influence me in certain directions, and some of it, like it worked, and I realized like once I was in it, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't be taking part in this. And it wasn't like anything bad or illegal, but just like trying to pull me to political stuff when I should be completely nonpartisan. That's why I'm so dead set right now. I'm not going to promote any political party. I'll promote the parties that are currently in government, not as in promote them for people to vote for them, but promote to get involved in the current systems we have.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, even that, like I've kind of gone back into some of the conversations that I've had. I'm like, oh, I was totally getting manipulated there. And
it's difficult to know when you're in it, right?
Yes.
Until you take a step back and gain some perspective, and maybe it takes a day or two, but you see it after a while.
And once you kind of just I say follow the Holy Spirit. Even then I knew something didn't quite feel right. And then once you kind of make that realization, you correct course. And I mean, when you're running an organization like I am, or in a position that I am, you're going to make mistakes. You're not always going to say the right thing. You might be too short with someone if you're like so overwhelmed and someone makes demands of you that you have absolutely no time to do. I've kind of had to realize like there are um distractions that are sent your way to try to disrupt what you're doing. So I've learned to, when someone sounds crazy, they likely are crazy. If they keep obsessing, then block them.
Yeah, when they show you who they are, believe them, right?
Yeah, believe them. So I've had
So
to do that quite a few
what are
times.
the next moves that unless you don't want to talk about them because then it would give the game away, but what exactly is the next step moving forward here with Unified Grassroots? Is it going to be a door knocking campaign? Do you need volunteers? You need some more funds? What exactly is the goal here?
Well, we need more funds. I think we would love to have billboards out there so people would know. We would love to do like ads, like Facebook ads, even like that. That can reach a whole ton of people. We can reach our clientele. You can actually target Facebook ads quite
Yep.
well. But all of these things cost money. We're planning on doing 15 town halls throughout the province. The first one is already scheduled for May 25th in Saskatchewan. I say at Prairie Land Park, I just need to finalize I've signed the contract. We just haven't given the deposit yet. So until that's like for sure, it's happening on the 25th. That'll be the first. And we're going to do 15 throughout the province. And hopefully hearing, okay, what are the questions people have? What are things that making them hesitant? What are things that that's pushing them to want separation? Like we want to really hear from them. We're just trying to figure out how do we do that so it doesn't become like a rant fest where the crazies get the mic, because there's always a crazy or two that don't want to release the mic, but we do want to
I,
hear from people.
I know how to deal with that. It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. You just make sure that you got a big dude standing right next to the person holding the mic in the audience, right? Because what happens all the time, and we totally respect that everybody wants to be able to
Yeah.
voice their own opinion. We get it, but we need to sometimes get through 30 different questions in the matter of an hour and a half before people start getting up and leaving, right? So you've got
Yeah.
to try and limit the time that people have on the microphone. When they try to take it in their own hand, you take it back from them.
Mhm.
And if they're going on too long, then you just have to kind of whisper in their ear without embarrassing them. Okay, maybe it's time to wrap it up here. And if they're one of those fringers that you were just talking about, that's the big dude in the back with the facial expression. That's what you
Usually
need.
we say ahead of time we're going to take the mic if it goes too long, but
Yeah.
the thing is
And
there's
that's
a lot of
absolutely fair. Some people don't, in the moment because they're very passionate. We totally understand the
like
passion that
we're
people
we're
have,
the
right?
same. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what we're going to do though, there's a lot of people too that won't want to take the mic, but will want to tell us stuff. And usually sometimes those are the ones with the best ideas.
You
So
got to stick around. Not only do you have to do these, this is the thing, right? I've been down this road as well. So you do a 2-hour presentation and then you're hanging
stick around
around
for
for
an hour.
another hour or longer after that to talk to the people who are a little too shy to come on the mic. Yeah. And you're right. They do sometimes have the best ideas. They don't even realize it. And
We're
it's not even
hoping
like go ahead.
Yeah, we're hoping we're going to have like I think what we're going to do to try to avoid that, to try to avoid for media to come and clip like the most insane statement or question. I think what we're going to do, because we do want to hear from the people, I think we're going to have an option where they can do it with their phones and just fill it out and send it to us, and then we'll grab some of those questions and answer them on stage, because like Jordan Peterson does that. I don't know if you've been to one of his shows. Anybody can ask a question and they'll answer them, but that way we'll get all the data from the people who don't want to grab the mic, all the data from the people who may, if they get seen saying something, could affect their jobs, stuff like that. And then we still get to hear from the people. That might be the avenue we're going to go to, just because it's so important that we don't get defined by the media in this. So it's not necessarily we don't want to just everything be the way we want. We want to hear from them, but at the same time, we know what media is going to do. So yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. And it's obviously different if it's Saskatoon versus a small town of like Humboldt, like where there'll be 100 people or 200 people. But who
Yeah.
knows? Like we have room for 400 people, but we may have 1,000 people show up. So we're going to be putting it up on it. Well, we've had that happen before with
I know.
UT. So
Yeah.
we're going to put it on our website with an RSVP so we can get a gauge. And if it, let's say there's 500 RSVP, we're going to try to get a bigger hall from Prairie Land Park. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what. So the plan is the town halls. Let's hear directly from people, so we know we can gauge. Okay, where's the sentiment? Is it 51st state? Is it form its own country? Is it a republic? Is it staying within Canada? Because we're hoping there's going to be people who are going to come who don't want it to happen, and we want to know why.
Do you
So
think that Mark Carney, knowing what you know about him, and you know a lot about him, as do I, do you think that he is going to live up to any of Danielle Smith's demands? She's got 10 out there. And that means getting rid of Bill C-69, the No More Pipelines bill, and the No More Tankers bill. That means getting rid of the caps on producing energy. And this applies to Saskatchewan as well, because there's definitely oil there. Do you think that he would even consider any of that, knowing what we know? Like, he's a net zero zealot. He was the United Nations climate
no,
guru. So if he doesn't, that's it. Game over.
this is what I predict is going to happen. I think he's going to talk a big talk like he's going to do that, and try to squash the momentum of the separatist movement. He's going to sound very reasonable when he talks. I think this is what's going to happen, but eventually his core values and the values of his party won't let him go in that direction. So I think in about 6, 7, 8 months from now, the people will realize, oh, he's not going to do it. So now we need to fight. So, but we're not going to stop. We're going to keep gathering the people up until, so that when that happens, we're ready to go. That's what I think is going to happen. I could be wrong. I'd be pleasantly surprised if he meets all the demands. I don't think he will. I'd like to see similar demands come from Scott Moe, if I'm honest.
Mhm.
I don't know if we will, but again, the AGM is coming up this September. So there's going to be, let's say, thousands of people get memberships today.
Let's just say.
Let's just say, hypothetically, that sends a strong message out there.
UnifiedGrassroots.com. Go to the website and look around, check it out. What do people need to see? What are the top 2 things people need to see on the website, Nadine?
Well, if they're from Saskatchewan, I highly recommend they sign the petition. If they want to volunteer, we're going to have teams probably to do signature drive, door knocks and stuff eventually, because the petition is just for the plebiscite. If we want to get over 50% for separation, we're going to need to have massive campaigns and like 100,000 people working towards this. To answer the questions people have. We'd love to do flyer drives. Like that would be like right now, if we got like 20,000 dumped into our account, we could do a flyer drive throughout all of Saskatchewan. That'd be super effective. But
Facebook advertising will absolutely help you. Instagram will absolutely help you. I'm not so sure about X. I don't see too many ads on X, but does TikTok do ads? Like whatever. You get it out there, right? Because it's cheaper on social media too. It's not nearly as expensive as making a flyer or putting up billboards. I agree with you that those things probably should be done as well, but you've got to live within your means too. So
yeah, if we did like a flyer drive though, it would get Coffee Row talking everywhere.
That's
what
we
we're
need.
going to need. Yeah, we're going to need to be the discussion of every coffee row in Saskatchewan. So,
all right, cool. Thank you, Nadine, for coming on tonight. So nice to see your face.
It's nice to see you too.
All right. See you again soon. All right.
Bye.
Nadine Ness, you guys of Unified Grassroots, man, that probably the most introspective conversation that she and I have had. She's been on quite a bit these last few years, and always a treat to have her on and have discussions like this with her. UnifiedGrassroots.com again. So keeping in line with the bombshell that was dropped by James O'Keefe of OMG, O'Keefe Media Group yesterday. Tonight on the extension, because the bomb he dropped yesterday was the dude talking about how Prince Andrew was in fact sleeping with teenage girls. That's out there. From one of Prince Andrew's best friends. or longest acquaintances, whatever. And that was videotaped, and that was put out all over social media yesterday. And then, of course, today, Pizzagate kept coming up again and again and again. Now, some social media will tell you that was all debunked a long time ago, and why is it coming up again? No, it was never debunked. It just wasn't. So tonight on the extension on shadowdavis.com for the All Access Nighthawks, we've got part 4 and part 5. And the reason for this is because this is probably the best piece that I have ever seen on that particular subject, done by Janet Osbard and the Fall of the Cabal. Part 4 and part 5 of the original series, not the conclusion and not the sequel. Part 4 and part 5 of the Fall of the Cabal is coming up tonight on the extension on shadowdavis.com. And if you're not a member, I suggest signing up and becoming one so you can join us. As well, you might want to join, as a matter of fact, you will want to join so you can be part of the conversation, the Telegram group. That's Shadow at Night Community, right? So look for that in the search of Telegram. And I know that Telegram is not exactly user-friendly if you're new at it. You just got to figure it out. Won't take you long. A couple of minutes. Just stay with it. The Shadow at Night, NITE community on Telegram. There's like 600 people who are members of that group, and we all have great discussions while we're watching all of this stuff and talking about all of this stuff in the extension on the website. Also, we have a winner of either a Shadow at Night cap or a Shadow at Night mug to announce at the beginning of the extension, which is coming up in just a couple of minutes on shadowdavis.com. So we'll see you there, Nighthawks, in a couple of minutes. And for the rest of you guys, no show tomorrow night. I'll be back on Monday night at 8 o'clock Central for another one, unless something major happens and I have to come on. I love you all. I appreciate you all. And I will talk to you again very, very soon. Good night.